My name is Elmer.
My name's Boris. Not as cool, but it goes with my face.
My father would soon set foot in places no child had ever been before. Dangerous.
Elmer!
Wild.
Help!
Strange places.
That's what I'm going to look like after I get my fire. When I save the island.
You save Wild Island? You're pulling my leg.
My Father's Dragon is a really heartwarming watch. And so much of this film is about the true meaning of bravery, I think. Like, it's about not the absence of fear, but persevering even though you are afraid. Why do you think that distinction is so important? Like, why do you think it's so clear to know that bravery isn't about not being afraid?
I think for me, like, after watching this movie, I even learned something from it. One of the bravest things that you can do is bring people up with your bravery, which is something that kind of Boris brings up Elmer, and then Elmer also brings up Boris in a way where they, it's almost like they're sharing, their bravery, where it's just not something that's like for yourself, right? It's something that you can use to bring others up.
I think most people, especially when they're very young, assume initially going in that their elders and the people that they admire and look up to and the people that expect so much from them are fearless, and they believe truly, when you see, you never see your parents afraid and they can do anything and they can conquer the world, and you just can't wait to get to that point in which you can do that too. And you start to grow up and you realize that hasn't happened yet. You're like, when's that part gonna happen? I'm like, I'm still pretty scared. And I think it takes quite a while for you to understand that truly fear never really goes away, but you have to persevere and you have to keep going through, and that's exactly what this movie's about. And of course there's the fantastical element where Boris needs to find his fire, and there's something that's a little bit more reserved and truthful to those watching with Elmer, where he has to find himself and he has to find where his responsibilities lie with his mom and with his town and with his home and his responsibilities. They're going through very similar things, and I think a lot of what Boris goes through is truly how it seems crazy, but it's truly how Elmer feels. He feels tied down. He feels lost. He feels scared, and he feels like he can't grow, and that's literally what Boris is going through.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's literally
he's literally going through that. He's literally tied to an island. Cool.
Quite literally, yeah.
I think that when it comes to seeing male representation in fiction, we don't often see males as like having fear. It's always about them being strong, and it's being kind of like can conquer anything, really sure about themselves. But it's really interesting that these are two males who are scared of their responsibilities. Why do you think it's important for children to see the vulnerability of males within fiction? Like, what impact do you think it might have on them?
I think that's exactly what I as you stated, that I think a lot of stories that center around men and young men and stories that seem like they're written for boys looking up to people that they can look up to. It usually is it's the Luke Skywalkers, and it's these heroes who can conquer anything. And I think that something like this is super essential, just to let people know, to let young boys and young kids know initially straight out the gate that it is fine to be afraid. It is completely okay to be afraid. There's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean that you don't get up every time you fall. And that doesn't mean that you must keep walking forward through your challenges, through whatever comes your way. And it is the fear in doing so that makes that accomplishment so much greater. And yeah, I think it just needs to be stated more that people. I think the human experience, I think, should be expressed to young people a lot more than it usually is. And I think that most of the time you see it represented well in animated stories and in stories that are geared towards young people throughout the years, which has been great.
Yeah, it's just real. It's just closer to real life. I mean, I can't remember where I heard this from, but it's like bravery isn't being fearless. Bravery is overcoming your fear, which I think is a big theme of this movie. And they're terrified the whole time. I mean, the things they
And
go
sometimes in very funny ways.
through, in very funny ways, right? And they have each other, and that's how they get through it.
What animations yourself have you watched that have had impacts on you in a way that this film might have impact on us?
That's a great question.
I said this 9 times today, and I'm saying it again, that Finding Nemo is my favorite movie of all time. I'm not even kidding. Favorite movie of all time. And part of the reason is because it's a story about a young kid conquering the world and doing something that the people in his life never really thought he even could. And it's wonderful, and it looks stunning, and it's beautiful, and it's captivating, and young people see it, and they are drawn to it initially because of how it looks, and then they stay for what it says. And I think that's exactly what this movie does.
Yeah, I mean, I think animation can do something that live action isn't that live action has more of a struggle to do.
Mm-hmm.
Where they can show emotions way more, powerfully than live action could. I'm trying to think of like an animation that really, inspired me. I think Cars is one of them.
I love that.
And I think that also can kind of relate to the whole thing where it's important to show your emotions, because you have, Lightning McQueen, this hothead.
Yeah.
But he's humbled by this town.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that movie taught me an important message, to really stay humble, because, that's what matters. And humbleness is something that I really think is very important. So,
That's one of my favorite movies.
I think I think Cartoon Saloon stuff, all of their stuff has just blown me away. I think not just with how it looks, but with their themes and what they like to tackle, and what stories they like to tell, and who they like to inspire through what they make, and to be a part of something that they're making is just wonderful. And working on this project introduced me to I'd seen some of their work before, but I went down this rabbit hole and just fell in love with the dedication that they put into these films.
There was a tweet or a post recently posted that suggested that the script has come to a finish for season 5. You didn't know this?
No.
Do you have any knowledge of what could happen?
Well, I'm calling them now because they didn't tell me anything. I'm mad. Like, it's on Twitter before they give me a call. And let me
How
know
dare
it's finished.
they?
I'm mad. I'm mad. I don't know. That'd be crazy. I would doubt it, but who knows? They surprise me every day.
Do you have a kind of idea of where it could go, like season 5? How emotional are we talking?
Onwards and upwards is honestly what I can only assume and hope for with this last one. I mean, it's the last one. The season 4 was just absolutely insane in so many ways, and it's exactly what the characters got to do, and what the show actually was, and how long it was, and how big of a season it was comparatively to the previous 3. And so I can only imagine it's gonna have to live up to what we've already made, and I'm excited to see what they do. Who knows what they do, but I'm here for it. And whenever they call me back, I'm ready to get back in there.
Your character really came into his own in that season as well.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I get to do what I get to do with that. They're nice to me.
Do you think we'll be getting any new characters this season?
I'd hope so. I always like working with new actors in this, and I like seeing how a lot of new actors enjoy coming and working in the show. Because I mean, it's quite large. It's got quite a following, and so a lot of people feel pretty scared when they first initially start to work on it. I remember like when we had Maya join and when we had Joe Quinn join. I remember Joe is petrified, but he just delivered something so wonderful. And I know if they have new characters, that they will be what the show needs, and if they don't, then that's what the show needs. And they know how to make it. They know how to do it right. And so I'm excited to see what they do.
They've had me hooked all this time.
Good. Me too. So.
Just quickly going back to My Father's Dragon. Your character, I mean, you're no stranger to playing characters that have gone through hardship and show bravery. What is it about these kind of roles that appeal to you? Because you've played like Wonder, you've done Room. What appeals to you about these roles?
I think, honestly, I always looked up to these kind of heroic characters. And what you said at the beginning of the interview about, how it's rarely shown, the emotional side of it, I think that really spoke to me, because I'd never really thought about that before. And I always, since I was like, I mean, everyone always, kind of like, pretended to be characters. But like, for me, I never did sports, like I never did hockey or soccer. It was all about movies. Like I would just like have an action figure and just watch a movie and just become that character. Like say it was Indiana Jones. Like that was a big one for me.
Harrison Ford.
I mean, yeah, he's a goat.
You've been able to tackle something that I think that a lot of actors at your age would also always love to. That is very uncommon for people to be able to. You're able to tackle vulnerable characters and play them to absolute perfection. And
Thank you.
I think it's something that is very rare. And that, of course, not only are you very lucky to get to play, but the projects you work on are very lucky to have you playing them. And that's what I'm so happy you get to do this, because you've
This guy.
blown me away with the work you've done before. Dude, I'm such a fan of you. You don't even know. Like, he
Wow,
has no
bro.
clue.
Thank you guys, that was amazing.
Thank
But
you.
I would totally agree on that point.